When it comes to geopolitics, there's no country that shapes the global landscape like the United States of America. Especially under the Trump administration, there is always a decision that the Trump administration is making that is going to shape the way in which countries are going to approach their economies and their trades. Now, the question is for you as a South African staying in South Africa, how has what Trump's decisions or what Washington has been doing, how much of that has affected South Africa? In this video, we're just going to be looking at a few things that have happened that has affected South Africa. I'm Jay Chronic. This is Decoded HQ. Now, in our first segment, we look at how the US dollar has affected the Rand. Now, I'm pretty sure if you've been watching the news, you've seen that the Rand has strengthened against the US dollar. We saw this week that the US dollar traded as low as 15 Rand 72 cents. This is remarkable considering that it just almost felt like just a week ago when the US dollar was trading at around 19 Rand. But you see, now the question you're obviously asking is what has changed? Is it because South Africa has somewhat implemented new policies? Have they implemented, interest rates? Have they cut interest rates? Have they done something on the South African side to make their currency stronger? No. What's actually happening is a reaction to what's happening in the United States of America. The Trump administration has, it appears, well, I'm saying it appears, but a recent clip of Donald Trump shows that the man is actually happy with the US dollar becoming weaker.
Mr. President, with the current value of the dollar, do you think it's declined too much?
No, I think it's great. I mean, the value of the dollar, look at the business with
But you make a hell of a lot more money with a weaker dollar, not a weak dollar, but a weaker dollar than you do with a strong.
Now, why would a person want their country's currency to then lose its value, which is what is currently happening? Why would you want that to happen? Well, it's happening because once you have your currency becoming weaker, it then increases your exports. You see, if it makes it easier for more countries abroad to buy your products, because remember, your currency becomes weaker, it's easier now to buy from you, it's easier to trade with you, because it now gives you a competitive edge that, listen, it's now cheaper to buy from us compared to your other competitors. However, a massive contradiction is happening here. And you're probably asking, what's the contradiction? It seems like it's an easy plan from the Trump administration. Get your US dollar weaker so that you can increase your exports. The contradiction is coming from the fact that Donald Trump, the Trump administration, has basically been increasing tariffs. Now, what happens when you increase tariffs, it now means that now you are increasing the amount of money, you're increasing your production costs to produce the products that you're going to export. So there's a bit of, there's an imbalance here. You increase the amount of money to make products, but then decrease the amount of money to sell those products. It's a very interesting ploy by the Trump administration, to say the least. So you get to see that it's not that the Rand is strong, the dollar just became weaker. And it seems like it's going to become weaker and weaker if the Trump administration do not really clarify their policy positions. Now, as you can see, it's a very interesting strategy that the United States are trying to use. However, as much as it's interesting, it doesn't really give investor confidence, and the markets are not responding too well to the Trump administration's plan. Hence, you can even see the South African Reserve Bank have not changed anything within their policies, no interest rate cuts, because usually that's what would happen if the Rand has now strengthened or a currency strengthens. You usually see that the banks change their policies, change their interest rates, but that is not happening. The reason why that's not happening is they don't trust that the United States are going to keep at this particular position, right, where they've got, their tariffs this high and they've got the US dollar being this weak. It's just, It's just not going to happen like that. They don't believe that it's going to be sustainable. Which leads us to the United Kingdom, who are not also responding very well. You see, at least with South Africa, they have been a lot more neutral to Washington's stance with the US dollar. However, countries like the United Kingdom, a very strong ally of the United States, appear to have now gone to China. Now, the US dollar weakening doesn't make us just focus on South Africa. No, we gotta take a break and just hop on over to the United Kingdom to understand how they are reacting to the US dollar and basically how the Trump administration is carrying out the economic policies, and it doesn't look like they've got much confidence. The reason why I'm saying this is because after almost 8 years, we get to see something that we had never seen before, and that is seeing the United Kingdom and China at the same table talking about economic mechanisms such as trade, visas, investments. These are things that for almost 8 years we had never seen the United Kingdom being open to be talking with Beijing about these things. And the reason is simple. Britain doesn't trust. There's a lack of confidence in how the United States is going to be moving forward. There's a lack of confidence on how successful the United States is going to be with their current strategy, their current foreign policy. There's also a growing concern with the way in which Donald Trump has been using foreign policy to gain votes. His stance where he's insulting European countries, insulting his allies, threatening to invade Greenland, all just to show strength so that he can gain votes. Now, if you're a Trump supporter, then obviously you loving what you're hearing. You're hearing that America is so strong, they can do whatever they want. However, when you're from the outside, when you're looking at the reality of how trade works, what Trump has been saying has not been going well within the international community, which makes countries like the United Kingdom really start to now quietly align themselves with different trade partners, because they no longer trust that the United States are still going to be effective economic trade partners. But while Britain is recalibrating quietly, Iran is recalibrating loudly. Now, if you've got a general knowledge of geopolitical matters, you would probably know that the United States of America and Iran have always had somewhat of a shaky relationship. I'm saying shaky. It's always been bad, right? So, just recently, I don't know if it's a couple of months ago, I'll probably find the tweet and I'll post it here on this video. Donald Trump threatens Iran and says that, listen, Iran, y'all need to stop with your nuclear project. Iran just recently then responded to that threat, because Donald Trump said that if you don't stop the nuclear project, we are going to invade, and basically he was threatening war if Iran doesn't stop the nuclear project. So Iran then responds just recently and says that they would retaliate also. And so this is another approach to the United States which you need to take note of. Countries like Iran do not have any economic leverage. They are isolated. There's so many sanctions on Iran. They've also got the human rights violations. Just recently, they also did the crackdown on some anti-government protesters. Many were murdered and killed. Now, Iran, man, the pronunciation always gets me, right? Iran is a very isolated country. So many sanctions are put on them. They've got very little diplomatic and economic leverage. Now, when you don't have economic leverage, what you can do is you use risk. And that's what basically Iran is doing when it comes to the United States. The United States threatened that they're going to attack Iran. Iran then threatened that they're also going to attack the United States. Now, as much as the United States have the full capability of whitewashing Iran, it does not necessarily mean that they would do it and be unscathed. So that risk of potentially losing some of your own people in a war is not something that the United States would really want to do unless they're changing their stance. And now, if they are actually changing their stance, Iran is clearly showing that they are more than open to also trying to beat the United States. But listen, when you understand the geopolitical context, you understand that the United States of America are not one to mess with in terms of their military. That's what usually happens between the United States and Iran. Iran will threaten that they're going to attack the United States of America. The United States of America says, okay, listen, let's talk about it. And then they make arrangements to try and sort it out diplomatically. Now, the reason why we talked about Iran so much is because it ties in to our very last segment. That is that Iran had their navy on South African shores. Now, the relationship between South Africa and the United States of America has been becoming gradually worse and worse over time. Now, a lot of people have been subscribing this to maybe how Donald Trump has been claiming that there's a white genocide in South Africa. Maybe. But analysts have been saying that the primary driver to the tensions between Washington and Pretoria is the fact that the South African government took Israel to the ICJ court. Now, the reason why we've mentioned this particular thing is we need to tie it in to what we currently saw with Iranian vessels arriving at South African shores. Now, remember, if there's ever a bad time to host Iranian vessels, it would be this time when tensions are rising between Iran and America. The optics don't look good. And yes, South Africa basically was just inviting all BRICS members to say, come, bring your navies, let's have an exercise. But remember, there are certain moments where when you host certain nations, it gives off a message. What exactly was South Africa signaling? Especially now when you put two and two together to say, okay, there are tensions between South Africa and America, and now you bring Iranian vessels to South African shores. What are you trying to signal? And so Washington had an issue with it. They released a statement. The US Embassy basically said, how is it that the South African government can bring Iranian vessels onto their shores whilst knowing that the Iranian government had done such a brutal crackdown on anti-government protesters? They basically started to claim that South Africa has got no moral authority to basically criticize any country. Now, there's a particular agenda that you can pick out from this. You see, with the ICJ court, it's not only about what you present in terms of legal work to the case, but they also look at your moral standing. So it was definitely, you can pick out an agenda that the United States of America could now basically weaponize this moment to now then try and attack South Africa's moral standing. Now, it was of no surprise that the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, basically sent a command to withdraw the Iranian Navy ships from South African shores. He issued out that mandate. However, it appears that the Iranian Navy vessels did not leave South African shores. Now, this has obviously made Pretoria now inquire and have investigations on why the Iranian naval vessels were still at South African shores. Because remember, the optics doesn't look good when you're hosting basically America's enemy. And remember, as much as there's tension between South Africa and America, South Africa still is a very neutral player within the geopolitical sphere. They don't take any sides. However, in this moment, judging by the geopolitical tensions that are rising between America and Iran, it may have not been the best to invite Iran in that type of situation. Now, in conclusion, you can clearly see that the United States of America's actions and decisions and economic models are clearly affecting South Africa in one shape or form. We looked at Britain to show you how other countries are reacting to how the United States of America is basically operating. We showed how Iran is also reacting to the United States of America and tied it back to South Africa to show you that the relationship between the United States of America and South Africa is becoming worse and worse by the day. I hope to see you guys next on our next video. Who knows what we're going to talk about next week. I'm Jay Chronic. This has been Decoded HQ.